Welcome back to Light the Fuse, the only Mission Impossible podcast with an original theme song by Kevin Blumenfeld.
Yes.
Legally dissimilar.
Yeah, and original and beautiful.
Beautiful. Not at all infringing on any copyright.
Nope.
No. Not. This is the third part of our Brad Bird series, and I'm kind of sad to say goodbye to Brad Bird.
It's great. Who are you, by the way?
I'm Drew Taylor, and you're Charles Head.
Yes, I am.
And we're just getting into it. I'm just excited. I'm pumped. This one is great. This is a great episode.
Yes. So much awesome stuff that he covers. It's really cool that we got to sit down with Brad Bird. It's really surreal.
It is. We need to tell people that the sound sucks in this one again.
Yes. It's not as bad as part one, but the lawn mowing comes back a little bit. And there's a truck backing up at one point. So there's like a beep, beep, beep.
But I think it's perfect because Brad's whole thing was he wanted everything to go wrong in his Mission Impossible movie. And now everything went wrong in our Mission Impossible episode. So it's perfect, I think.
Yes, thematically.
It's consistent.
Just exactly right.
So we're really excited for you guys to hear this.
Yes. Don't forget tomorrow. I know this episode comes out on the 29th of March.
I'm sure everyone's listening to it on the 29th.
If you're listening to it right away, then tomorrow, March 30th, is the midnight show of Fallout.
At the Vista?
At the Vista, 35mm. And at 10:30, we'll tweet to let people know when we're getting there and everything. But there's going to be a meetup at, what is it called?
Good Luck.
Good Luck. Oh, it's right next to the Vista Theater. So if you want to come talk to us about Mission Impossible, we're all ears.
Yeah.
We're ready.
Yeah, that should be fun.
Yes.
If not, it'll just be a couple of sad white men drinking alone in a bar.
But also wanted to do a little bit of self-promotion.
Yeah, please do.
Drew has written some amazing pieces that he doesn't want to tell you about.
Sure.
Because he's very humble, but he's done some great work.
Well, you can go to moviephone.com and read all of my stuff.
Yes.
Or listen to, I have another podcast. I feel very guilty about it. It's like I'm stepping out on Charles, but it's called Fine Tuning with Drew Taylor.
Right.
So you can listen to that as
and
well.
That's all about animation?
All about animation every week.
That's cool. Drew is an animation expert. He wrote a really big piece. What was that for? For about all the best Disney animated movies?
Yeah. For Collider, I ranked every single animated feature. Walt Disney animated feature, yeah.
I love that piece.
Yeah,
it's a long read, but well worth it.
Yes, people come up to me in bars and start talking about that. So, yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's a conversation starter.
Right. And I just wanted to say that my movie Night Owls, if you're bouncing around to different episodes, I've at different times said it was on Netflix, but it is no longer on Netflix. The contract has ended. And so you will not find my movie Night Owls there. But it is on iTunes for rent and Amazon streaming for rent, Vudu for rent, or buy if you want.
Yeah.
It's not on Amazon Prime yet, and I've mentioned that as well, that it was going to hopefully get to Amazon Prime soon, so I think it will. I think there's a short film called Night Owls on Amazon Prime.
Don't watch
but
that.
That's not that.
No.
Well, you can watch that if you want to, but that's the feature with Adam Pally and Rosa Salazar, who is Aleta Battle Angel.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you've seen Aleta and you want to see more of this amazing actress...
Yes, Rosa.
Without any computerized body parts or anything, you can watch your movie. She's amazing.
She is.
It's great to see her in that movie. You and I went and saw that movie together and loved it.
Aleta, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So watch her humble beginnings.
Yes.
In your movie. It's great. It's a great film.
Thanks. So
I
guess that's all we've got to say, right? Let's just get into Brad Bird.
And come back after
Sorry to make you wait.
Yeah, just come back after the show and we'll talk about some other stuff.
Yeah. The syndicate idea, when you threw that line there in at the very end, did you remember that? Was that just a memory of the old show that the syndicate that you had?
Somebody mentioned it, and I remember. Oh yeah, that was always the enemy in the show. I didn't remember it, but somebody brought it up, and we thought it would be good to mention. Did Chris write that? I think Chris might have written that. I don't remember.
He said it was your idea. McCory said to us that the syndicate was your idea. I don't know.
Well, it was from I remembered it from somebody mentioned it from the show in reference to something else, and I thought, well, that would be handy if you're gonna throw the cookie of the next assignment.
Right.
That would be a handy thing to do.
It's kind of the Joker card at the end of that.
Yeah,
Batman
and then
Begins.
I love that he followed it up
Yeah.
with his movies. Yeah, it's really cool.
Can we talk about Tom Cruise's hair for a minute?
Sure.
We talk a lot about his hair.
We talk about a lot about his hair.
And we
His
found out
hair
from McCory.
changes each movie.
Yeah, and this is, I think, the second longest after the second movie.
The John Woo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So was that always, were you a fan of Tom with this hair? I think it has a very nice kind of feathered look.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we
It is.
wanted to begin with him in prison, and that was an idea that existed before I came on it, and I liked it. There was also a feeling that he was in a rough spot in his career a little bit. Having him break out of a prison at the beginning of the movie was kind of like he's going to break out of all the nonsense that he'd been sort of caught up in, And there was a moment when we were making the film that we were talking about something, and I talked about talking to the press, and I said you can't just like tell them your feelings about everything, and he kind of looked at me and went, well, you can, but you'll get, I don't recommend it. And it was really funny. So I just think that in some ways that film, I think reminded people how vital of a force he is.
Yeah.
But for me, I heard talk about passing the franchise, but I didn't think of this film as passing the franchise.
Yeah.
To me, the argument was mooted the second you watch him do any of the film.
Yeah.
He still really got it, and he's this was 8 years ago, and he still holds the screen like a mofo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like for me, it was always a Tom film, but I did believe in building up the team, and I actually think it is good for Tom's character that they are more fully realized characters. And I think Chris does that too, in the films since. Benji to me was a tremendous addition to the film. And when I came onto it, one of the things that JJ said is, the Benji, the character Simon Pegg played in the one that I did, I went, yeah, that was great. He goes, well, he's going to be a part of the team on this. And I went, great.
Yeah.
I couldn't wait to work with Simon Pegg.
Yeah.
So having his character become another important character to the series, to me, was a really smart move. And that was just one more reason for me to do the film. And getting a chance to work with Renner he's a fantastic actor. And having Paula prove her stuff as an action heroine, I think was a good move, and somebody should cash in on that. And quite frankly, also someone should do a action movie with Josh. We
love Josh.
He really is great in the opening. I was sad that we ended up cutting some of the big action stuff that he was going to do, but by the time we got to that stuff at the end of the schedule, we had exhausted, and then to be faced with another giant scene that was going to be very difficult and expensive to shoot. We felt like we had the movie at that point, and that the prison sequence was really a good way to start the movie. So I think that he has got the chops to definitely be an action hero on his own. And I hope that anyone that looks at that film can see that he could do one too.
Yeah.
And so, but for me, this was always Tom's film and Tom's franchise, and I was grateful for the opportunity to work with Tom.
All right, Charles, ask your hat question.
There's a hat you wear on set that we love, and we want to get this hat.
Do you have any extras in the attic?
Am I with the 4 dots? Because I assume you didn't have a title yet.
It was called. We called it Aries when we
right.
were shooting it. We came up with Ghost Protocol. I was with Josh and Andre in Dubai, and they said the studio wants to call it MI4, and Tom didn't want to call it MI4, and they didn't. Josh and Andre didn't want to call it MI4, so we were saying Mission Impossible something. And we came up with Ghost Protocol. It might have been Applebaum that came up with it, because it was mentioned at one point in the script, Ghost Protocol. And we thought, that's a cool name. So the hat, I would go to Bad Robot.
Okay.
They're the ones
All right, we're
that
gonna
had
do
the hat.
we're gonna do a Mission Impossible heist in there to get one of those.
Yeah.
hats.
Yeah.
two of those.
Yeah,
hats.
you think that's cool with the 4?
We can share it back and forth.
Yeah, you need an E screen.
Yeah.
Which we haven't talked about, by the way.
Yeah. Where did that come from?
That was, again, an idea Josh and Andre had, but they were kind of vague about how it worked. And so I started going, well, The only thing I can think of is that it will take a measurements on a hallway and project it, but you can't have it work for everyone. It could only really work for one person's perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I said, if you give it that weakness, then I can accept the technology.
Right.
It's borderline not acceptable. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, there's an episode of the old show where they do that
Yeah.
gag with the screen, and it
Yeah.
doesn't really, because the perspective wouldn't work. You
Right.
would notice it was
and
the screen.
And so I said, so it has to be at a distance, and it has to be from one person's perspective, and we have to understand that graphically in the film. And so they kind of went, well, how would that work? And I said, well, let's have it work, and then let's break it. And in the breaking of it, it'll explain why it doesn't work for more than one person. And so when another person enters the room, I said, let's have it flip out, because it doesn't know whose perspective to pick. And then we'll see the hallway shift perspective.
Yeah,
And
that's so cool.
Yeah, and everyone kind of nodded at me with this sort of half foggy look on their face, like, I guess that'll work. And so while we were filming it, there was quite a bit of doubt from everybody except Tom and Simon. For some reason, those two guys were total believers.
Wow.
With all due respect to everyone on the set, and they're all brilliant people, there was a lot of not saying it doubt going around. It was pretty much you could cut it with a knife. And I was kind of rushing and saying, okay, now we need to go from the person down to the iPad where you can see this happening. And nothing's on the iPad. You know what I mean? So everybody had to suspend a tremendous amount of disbelief to believe that it was going to work. And our machine was nicely designed, but it didn't fit to the end of the hall. And it was kind of flopping around a lot. And, the first thing where it comes up in front of Tom, we had it practically work, but so many takes it didn't work. And there's shots of Tom looking as this thing kind of has a little spaz attack in front of him and then dies. So you had to get the shots together in order and then have ILM do a little work to smooth it out and make the machine look a little sturdier than it was. But once we got it in there with the sound design where you just hear the air conditioner, which makes you aware of everything being silent. If you have no sound, people don't read it as silence. They read it as somehow we have gone deaf. Whereas if you put a tiny bit of sound, then that is the sound of silence, is actually a little tiny bit of sound. And Gary Rydstrom and the wonderful geniuses at Skywalker Sound made a really nice sound mix in there, which I think helps the suspense of the sequence. But a lot of people kind of came up to me after the film was done and admitted to me that when we were filming it, they didn't think it was going to work in a million years.
Was Hendrix always in those scenes? That was something that you recognized like on second or third viewing, that he's always in the background. Was he there?
Yeah. Yes.
I mean, was that okay? That wasn't like a
I planned it that way.
Okay, yeah.
And I thought that's playing fair with the audience, and it's rewarding them for being observant.
Yeah.
And to have Tom not see it. There are sometimes people who advocate that the heroes are flawless, and I am not one of those guys. And sometimes I had to fight a little bit on this film to not have Tom's character know everything because, he's the hero. And it's like, yeah, but he's also mortal. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so the fact that most of the audience does not notice that Hendrix is there and waiting for Ethan to come through in order to get his timing right, that also says that conceivably Ethan could not notice him too.
Yeah.
Ethan, maybe doesn't know totally what he looks like at that point. Maybe they're not suspicious of him too much at that point. In other words, the fact that you don't notice it and the fact that Ethan doesn't notice it makes it feel like fair play.
Yeah.
And by the same token, I try to arrange shots so that something is hidden in the background and the audience sees it maybe a split second before Ethan does. Like the audience goes, he's there, and almost as if Ethan hears them, he will turn and go.
Yeah.
And that's all incredibly deliberate, because if you can orchestrate it to where the audience feels like they are the ones discovering stuff, and then the camera somehow reacts to their discovery, then it feels like a visceral movie experience. And so there are moments in the chase where the audience sees the character running away from camera less than a second, probably like 16 frames before Ethan does. And it's timed to be that way. I just think it makes the movie experience seem more like you're living that dream, you know?
Right. And just quickly, sorry, I just want to ask about Luther. He
Sure.
came in last minute, right at the end.
Right.
Was that just a last second addition at the
It
end
was.
of the last scene?
It was. He was originally not designed to be in that movie because it was sort of a movie done on the fly.
Right.
Not the movie done on the fly, but meaning
The mission.
The mission is an improvised mission.
Right. He doesn't
It's-
get to pick his team. Or
Yeah, he
interesting.
doesn't have the wherewithal to get Luther and do everything by the book.
Right.
In other words, he's sprung out of prison without him knowing that he's going out. He just suddenly hears that music and knows that he's out.
Yeah.
But in his mind, he was intending to stay in the prison for another whatever period of time to complete what he's there for. So at the last minute, we thought it'd be really nice to have Luther in this scene. And McQuarrie came up with the bit where he digs into his pocket and pulls out a bird for Ethan and all that, which I thought was really funny.
Yeah.
And,
It's great to have him in every movie. So
yeah, and it
seems
was
really
good to
nice.
have Ving come up and do that.
We also love the idea of Ving always sort of having a scuba exercise. He's got to
Right.
go down to the bottom
That's
of
right.
Yeah.
Scuba Luther.
Yeah.
We're obsessed with the idea that he's a scuba expert, because in the Vatican sequence in 3, he's doing the scuba work.
Right.
And then in 4, he references that he was down at the bottom of the ocean fixing the leftover
missile
had
Yeah.
landed in.
Yeah,
Say it was
and
in San Francisco.
he's kind of ragging on him for making him do it. you know?
Yeah.
Which I like, because it makes it like a workplace thing. you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, our last question is always, and if this is only if you're comfortable with it, but can you rank your favorite Mission Impossible movies? From
Or at least your top 3.
top 3.
I enjoy working in the film industry and staying friends with all filmmakers. And
Did you
therefore,
see Fallout?
Huh?
Did you see Fallout?
The new one?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Did
did.
you see it in
I liked it
IMAX?
a lot. Yeah,
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it. I
Yeah.
mean, I saw Chris and Tom like 3 weeks ago or a month ago when shooting Top Gun.
Oh, yeah. McQuarrie told us.
mentioned
Yeah.
that he said just seen you on the
Yeah,
set.
yeah. So no, I still am in touch with those guys, and
That's
I
cool.
think they're great, and yeah. So I enjoy the mission films.
Are you a big De Palma fan?
I am a De Palma fan. I think sometimes he goes over the top. There's
Yeah,
a
that's part of the
movie
fun,
called
though.
Yeah.
Yes, and that is part of the fun. And the Mission Impossible, I think one of the best sequences in the series is that one where he drops in the room and is
Yeah.
suspended.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that sequence is just about perfect.
Yeah.
And it's extended. It lasts like 15 minutes or
Yeah,
something
and it's
crazy.
like mostly silent for.
And-
it was like 9 minutes of silence. It's crazy.
Yes, which was inspiring to me to try to do the E-screen in silence.
Yes,
and
yeah.
mine is a little more goofy than De Palma's. The gag of Benji, bending
Right.
down in front of the camera and suddenly
His
his
head up.
head
Oh, it's so
fills the
great.
hall.
Well, and then there's a part that you deleted too, where the guard gets so close to the screen. It's on the Blu-ray. Yeah,
Deleted scenes.
Yeah.
yeah. And you said too much.
Yeah. Well, we milked it more.
Yes.
We came out and milked it more with Simon's character, and it just was
Right.
like, nah.
Well, so there's a shot in the Dubai sequence where he's running from the sandstorm, and it's way up high, and he kind of goes underneath this building that emerges on the other side. And to
Right.
me, it looked like a shot from Blowout, which is a scene where the Jeep goes through and
Oh,
out the other
no,
side.
I
I didn't know if it was a reference or anything for you.
No.
Okay.
No. That's interesting, though. It's the first I've heard of that.
So
No.
it's like a really, I don't know.
It was just a
It was a
geography
similar
shot.
structure of like
But
running
that
through
structure
into the other side.
is that structure next to the Burj? Because I actually visited the Burj.
It's not.
Okay, because I was looking for that
No,
building.
we're,
Okay,
we're
You're playing fast and loose.
We are.
Yeah, okay. That's fine.
Yes.
Hey, Cruise runs. When he runs, he can run fast and get far.
No, we're in the grand tradition of movie geography being whatever you want it to be.
Yeah.
It is done for maximum popcorn crunching.
Yeah. Well, you succeeded.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for making a movie that inspired a now 35 episodes podcast. And
wait, I wanted to talk about that shot.
Oh, talk about the shot.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
That is one of the few shots that isn't Tom.
Whoa.
Yeah. And people
this is the
said,
helicopter shot?
People said, is that Tom doing all that stuff? I said, well, there are 3 shots without Tom in the movie. And on 2 of them, I said, together, they last maybe 5 seconds of the movie. And 4 seconds of that is like that shot. And we filmed it with Tom running. And the camera kept drifting off because of the wind that day, drifting off the shot. So it kept going off. The start position would be where we wanted. The end position would be not. And the person was not centered in the frame, And so we didn't get the shot. And it was expensive. You have to rent the helicopter. You have to get approval for the airspace, blah, blah, blah. And I said to the producer, we have to do it again. And he's like, are you ready to spend this amount of money? And it was considerable. And I said, it was like deeply painful, but I went, yes, we got to at least give it one more try because it's a big shot. It's a storytelling shot. You probably might want it in the trailer. I don't know, but it's one of those shots. We should do it. And so we got it, but Tom was filming the chase in the sand. We were cramped to get everything done before we got out of Dubai. And Tom was filming the sandstorm chase running in the sandstorm with second unit. And so it's not Tom in that high shot running.
Wow.
And it's, Tom would have been great. He probably would have been a little faster than the guy that we have. But that's not Tom in that shot. And the other 2 shots that are not Tom are him being hit, and in both shots, the stuntman was injured, and and those 2 shots together add up to maybe a second, since they're like 10 frames of Tom, but Tom is in the shot before it and the shot after it. All the shots that people believe are not Tom are Tom. And these are literally like inserts where we're dropping him on his back or something. And it's like, I can't do that with Tom.
Right.
Because if he lands slightly incorrectly, he's out we have to shut the movie down.
Right.
So we were right in not letting him do the 2 shots that he didn't do. And again, they are like 16 frames. It's like, it's over.
Yeah.
Like that. But in both cases, the stuntman, whose name is Casey, got injured, Yeah. And it was good that we didn't do it with Tom. But all the ones where he's swinging on the building and he's 10 miles high and all that stuff, that's all Tom. And that's the stuff that people believe we shot with, computer graphics or something. And it's not. It's Tom.
Yeah. That shot of him running now. So we did a count of all his running in each of the movies.
Yeah.
It's sort of not too scientific, but Ghost Protocol had by 1 second the most of Tom Cruise running. But now that shot does not have him running.
Oh, no, you cannot say that. You will not do that to me. I demand that you cut this from the program now then. I want the longest Tom Cruise run.
Okay, it was Tom. It was Tom.
We shot the footage with Tom. Yeah.
It's amazing to see him running either away from or towards these like buggies that you rigged up.
Yeah.
Like him running like through the hallways of the Kremlin it's just fascinating that he can run that fast.
Well,
and then you put these buggies in front or behind the biggest
have
star
to
in
be
the world.
Faster than him.
Yeah.
And which is a challenge. But the other thing that's funny is whenever you film a running scene with Tom, if he's chasing somebody, you keep having to lengthen the distance that you start him from. Because he says, I'm going to run full out. And, because people will be able to tell if I'm not. Right? It'll look like I'm not running full out. So I've got to run full out because that's what the character would do. And so we'd put the other guy, 15, 20 yards ahead of Tom or whatever. And he'd go, I don't think it's enough. And I said, well, it's okay. We'll just do one. And he'll catch him in like 2 seconds. And he's got him. And so then the next take we'll do 30 yards. And boom, and he gets him. And then so you go, all right, 40 yards, and we had to almost cut around the fact that he was catching up every time.
Wow.
But that's what makes it compelling on screen is he looks like he's running with every fiber of his being, and that is what he's doing.
Yeah.
And what was funny was when we shot the sequence in the train yard, Renner was pretty fast himself. I think he ran track in high school. And so Tom and Renner, it was in the middle of the night and cold and all this stuff. And they were constantly doing these stretches and stuff. And it was just really funny to see these guys doing all this stuff, deep in the bends. And it was almost like they were in a track competition. But they had to, catch up to this train and be able to press these buttons. And it was a long night, but the sequence turned out fun.
That feels like a very Brad Bird moment as well.
Well, again, they're having, to deal with the, technology when they don't really want to be dealing with it.
Can you tell us the thing that you couldn't get through?
No, because I might be able to get it in another movie.
Okay, right. All right.
It had to do with the character being drugged, though.
Okay.
And that's all I'll say.
Okay.
But it wasn't because they weren't willing to do it. It was because there was no way to get it to fit.
Right.
Okay.
But all of the other things that I wanted to get in the movie, I got in the movie. And that was part of the fun of doing that film was it was done with the attitude of like, you can make the spy film you want to see.
Yeah. Well, you certainly made the spy film that we wanted to see. So
thanks.
You so much, Brad, for accepting this mission. And you didn't do a commentary. I think that now we have a feature-length commentary track for the movie with this interview. So thank you so much.
Yeah. Well, the only last thing I wanted to say was it was a challenge to do the IMAX. And we originally thought this is really ambitious to try to shoot it on the real building. And we're probably going to have problems. So we should prepare to only have done 2 or 3 shots of the sequence on the actual building because we don't know how hard it's going to be to move this camera. And when we first talked to them about doing it, we said we're going to need to bash out one of these double windows that are very expensive to put in. And they kind of gritted their teeth and then went, okay, you can bash out one window. Then as we got there, we kept getting bigger eyes. And they would say, can we do 3 more windows? And they'd go, all right, but you have to put them back exactly the way they were when you're done. And then we go, 10 more windows? We ended up breaking like 37 windows. These giant double pane windows. And just getting more and more shots. And we originally designed it so that we thought, the minimum we'll do is we'll do like 4 shots. Maybe we'll be lucky to get 4 shots. And we ended up getting everything. And we just kept bashing out windows and going to different floors and finding different angles. And we ended up shooting damn near the whole thing on the building. We didn't do some close-ups where it's literally just his face in the sky because there's no reason to do that on the real building. But all of the stuff that looks amazing is real.
Yeah, I couldn't believe I was watching some of the special features last night, and there's the part where he falls.
Yeah,
he loses his grip and falls. Was done on the building. I thought because I saw at one point some picture of the set that you used probably just for those inserts or close-ups.
Yeah,
and I assumed that's where the fall had done with a green screen or something. That fall is really
is real, and he
scary.
drops like 2 stories and then gets jerked, But everyone was extremely careful. He, when he does a stunt, he not only has a stunt team see what the problems are and explore everything and then gets a full download on every aspect and physically too. Like they'll have a setup of what the building will be like that's just done above pads and say, when you get to this point, you're going to have to switch your weight to this side. I mean, they kind of suss it out for him. And then he practices it, and he practices it, and he practices it. So by the time he gets on the real building, he's as well prepared as you can be before getting there. and then he rehearses on the building and perfects it on the building. He also trains so that the muscles he's going to need for in a specific stunt, he is peaking for that thing on the day that they are filming.
Wow.
So it is as thorough or as like a person training for the Olympics. And he, whatever the stunt requires of him, his team of guys will be preparing his body to do that thing on that day. And so, when it comes time to do it, he's as professional as they come. And all the stuntmen say, if this movie star thing doesn't work out for him, he would be probably the best stuntman in the industry, because he not only knows how to do it physically, but then he sells it emotionally by giving you the expression or something that emotionally sells it. So when they demonstrate a stunt for me, they'd have the stuntman do it, and it would look pretty good, but I'd be there going, yeah, but it's not. And the stunt lead would always go, it's going to look a lot better with Tom. Meaning that not only does he do the stunt, but he also sells the stunt. He makes you feel like the character is in the situation emotionally.
Yeah.
And like Greg Smurs was the stunt lead, and he had this very laconic way of kind of talking about it, and you go, well, are we kind of worried about, I'm sitting here, having the star hanging on this little very thin wire a mile up in the building, and he goes, oh, look, it's not like if you're only 3 stories above the ground, you're going to die. So it's not, you're going to die anyway. So it's just you're going to have more time to think about it on the way down, And I'm like, wow, these guys have a certain ethos that I can understand, but I cannot subscribe to. Yeah. So it was a good group of characters, and then we had another guy named Wire Eater, who was our consultant on guns and stuff, and he was actually part of the LA SWAT team and got OJ out of his car and like, you remember that thing in, was it North Hollywood, where the guys came out in body armor and were like that inspired the climax of Heat? Yeah, he was involved in that too. So he was a guy that was actually involved in this stuff, and now he consults on movies, and they were very careful to make on the building, there was a yellow area, yellow tape was on the ground, and if you crossed into that area, and it was before you got to the window, quite a bit before, you had to wear a harness that was connected to a wire so that if you fell, it would go choop and stop you from falling. So all the camera people and all the crew people that were inside this yellow area were hooked up.
Right.
So everyone was very serious about it. But we were there, and on the floor, Tom was getting the feel for the actual space. So he's on the Burj, and we're kind of on the inside of the glass, just talking about, how we're going to shoot it and stuff. But it's not the day of the shoot, it's days before. And I'm sitting there. I know he's out there with the climbing consultant guy. And we're just talking. And all of a sudden we hear, woo! And Tom goes by outside, swinging way wide by. And then he makes a rough landing into one of the sides of the building. And you hear, bam! And we're like, oh my God, our star's dead. And then we hear Tom laughing. And like, oh, and it's like, there was one point where we were in the middle of shooting this, and we're shooting it on IMAX, so it's physically, the cameras are huge, and they're hard to, maneuver and do these crane shots where you're going outside and all this stuff. And we also are shooting from a helicopter with IMAX. And so it all has to be orchestrated because there's only so much fuel that they can stay in the air for so long. And then they have to fly back to a place to get fuel. And the IMAX loads are short because this giant film, and it burns through it really fast because the frame size is so big. And so once they've shot 3 minutes, they have to go all the way back to put in a new camera because there's no way to do it inside the chopper. So all of this stuff is tremendously complex, and you've got walkie-talkies, and there's the stuntmen are talking to the camera people who are talking to the helicopter people who are talking that, and it all has to be orchestrated. In the meantime, Tom is holding himself on position, clinging to the side of the thing, going, "Are we ready yet?" And it's like crazy, right? So he's clinging to the side of the building, and it's on the corner of the building, and he's waiting to push off to this so that we can get one of those shots where he's floating out. And helicopters are readying, and they're constantly moving off their mark because of the breeze. So you can't start rolling until they're kind of on their mark and into position. And Tom has to hold. And meanwhile, he's cranked around enough with the harness that he has built into him that it's cutting off the blood to his leg. So if he doesn't push off within 10 or 15 seconds, he's not going to be able to push off hard enough to get out there and get the shot we need, right? And so he's like, "Are we ready?" And he's holding onto the corner of the building, and down below him on the other side of the building is a deck with tourists who are looking up there and seeing Tom, like 20 feet above them, and they're like, "That's Tom Cruise. Hey, Tom, say hi to my Aunt Mary." And they've got their little cell phone things shooting footage, and he's like, "Are we ready yet?" And so this kind of madness was going on, and we're in the middle of filming it. And of course, it took many days to film this whole sequence because we have to move all this stuff, and it's tough stuff to work. And at one point, it's in the middle of the night, and all of a sudden I wake up in like a cold sweat, like, because I realize the star of our film is like suspended by a tiny wire a mile above, and I'm allowing this to happen, And I'm like, what am I doing? This is insane, And then I thought, well, if it's insane for me, it's 3 times more insane for Tom. So if he's okay with it, I guess I'm okay with it.
Is it only one wire, or is there a backup wire? Or is there...
No, there's one wire.
That's it, just one wire.
No, it's one wire, and it's not that wide. It's really strong. So
there's no backup, basically. If anything fails with that one wire.
Right. And you have to, and
have a parachute
the only
or anything?
digital effect we did on those sequences is to digitally remove the one wire.
Right.
But in a lot of shots, you didn't see it because it's thin enough.
Right.
You know what I mean? Yeah, it's kind of nerve-wracking. But, Tom was really cool with it. And finally, at one point, I'm like, what was it like out there? I said, now that we're done with it, it's over. What was it like to be alone up there waiting for equipment and stuff, and you're just a mile up hanging off this thing? And he went, "Oh, it's fun." And I said, no, you got to give me more than that. You can't say that. I know that's the way you deal with interviewers. I said, but this is me now, right? What was it like? And he stopped for about 20 seconds, and he was really kind of trying to remember it. And he said, "It's very quiet. It's very peaceful. It's exciting, but it's also, you feel sort of privileged that you're in a spot that not a lot of people will ever experience." And he said, for me, it gave me peace. It was weird. It's like the word terror never entered into it. He was like, it's quiet, it's kind of beautiful. And it was kind of interesting to hear that from him,
Yeah.
Anyway,
Wow.
yeah, I loved doing the opening sequence to Dean Martin. I loved cutting that with Paul Hirsch and getting it to work with the music the way it does. It almost feels like a musical sequence, even though we have burning mattresses being thrown by prisoners. And I loved orchestrating all those shots. It was really a blast for me to do it with real cameras, and DP is as gifted as Robert Elswit. And so I got to work with people whose work I'd admired, and it was a blast.
Yeah.
Well, it was a blast talking to you. Thank you
Great.
so much for accepting this mission, Brad.
You bet. Light that fuse.
He told us to light that fuse. That's amazing. He was having a great time. That's what
Yeah.
makes me feel good about monopolizing that much of his day.
Yeah, well,
and,
he
you know,
also kept keeping us there.
Yeah, yeah.
You kept trying to be respectful, being like, well, you would do a wrap-up, and he'd be like, well, wait, I got
Yeah,
more to talk about.
yeah.
It was so cool.
it was
It's
just
great.
a fascinating look behind the scenes. There isn't as much stuff for this movie, I feel like, as for the other movies.
Yes.
And so this was like the commentary that we never got.
Yeah, I love that you call it like his audio commentary.
Yeah.
Because he never recorded one, so now we get a feature length.
Yeah, he only does it for the animated movies, and recently for Incredibles 2, he handed it off to like the tech people, which is
Oh,
really interesting.
that's
like,
really nice.
The set designers and the production designers and
That's
stuff like
awesome.
that. So he comes on at the beginning and says, "I'm not doing this. I'm letting them do it," which is really interesting.
Wow.
But
I have that Blu-ray. I need to pop
yeah,
that
pop
in.
it in. But
That's really cool.
we learned so much stuff. We need to start bugging Bad Robot about the hat.
Yes.
So we'll
Clearly.
start our campaign.
Yes, our quest to get the MI4 hats.
Yes,
Before they had the title.
the 4 dots.
Which we'll send out that picture on the
Yes.
social media. You'll see the hat we're talking about.
Yeah.
And it was interesting to hear him talk about the shots that were not Tom Cruise in
Yeah.
the movie. Not the big stunts, just
No.
little things.
Yes.
And yeah, and he insisted on us keeping Ghost Protocol at number 1 for the most Tom Cruise running. I guess we'll allow it.
Yeah, well, we have to check with McHugh on that one and see if he kind of colored outside the lines. But yeah, I thought that was really fascinating.
Yeah.
He told some amazing stories, and the matter of factness with which he addressed his hair, always
Yes.
very interesting.
Yes, we always love to have people talk about his hair.
Yeah, it's a gorgeous.
It's good
It's a
to
gorgeous
get,
cut.
but it's just that makes sense. Oh, he's in jail. That's why it's long.
Yes. In this episode, does he talk about the alternate versions of the
But he's
breakout?
still shaving though.
He's still shaving, and he's got like kind of a tiered haircut.
Yes.
Which is,
So-
I don't
but
think that any
I-
Russian guy is
Well,
doing
I
that.
think Ethan can cut his own hair, and he can style it well.
That's
Don't
probably
you
true.
think?
Yeah.
Even with a knife.
I brought up to someone just out of the blue about his lip reading the other day. I forget who I was talking to, and I said, he can read lips.
Yep.
And
Photographic memory.
whoever I was talking to went glassy-eyed, not listening to me. Yeah, but yeah, this was an amazing conversation. I mean, the whole experience was amazing talking
Yeah.
to Brad Bird.
And we have more guests on the way that we're working on.
We're working
no
on
one
them.
we can announce yet.
No.
Nothing official, but stay tuned because we've got
We're
a lot
working
of
on
great
it.
stuff coming
Yeah.
up. And I think next will be making of MI3.
Which is a big episode.
Yes.
Charles watched an entire cooking show dedicated to the catering of Mission Impossible 2. Did it look like good catering? We've both been on sets
it's amazing.
with crappy catering.
It's
so-
amazing.
Oh, okay.
No. This guy's worked with Cruise forever. So
Okay.
there was a Food Network special.
Only available on the iTunes version, apparently.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
But anyway, thank you for going on this journey with us.
Yes.
We're so excited to finally get it out to people, and it's gonna be hard to top this one, but I think we can do it.
We got stuff in the works.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just, subscribe, please,
Yeah.
and write reviews.
Yeah, and if you have any questions, tweet at us at LightTheFuse-Pod, or follow us on Instagram, or email us,
Or Facebook.
whatever you want. We're there, and so we'll have a mailbag episode soon too. So send in
Yes.
your questions, and until then, for Charles Hood, this is Drew Taylor.
Bye. Thanks again for listening, everyone. And before we go, another mission, should you choose to accept it. Please rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast on iTunes. And remember that you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at LightTheFusePod, and email us questions or comments at lightthefusepodcasts@gmail.com. If you'd like to watch the original Mission Impossible television show, all 7 seasons are currently available to stream on Amazon Prime. This message will self-destruct in 5 seconds.